In agriculture, there's just something that drives me nuts, Darren, and it's when a farmer has his crop go down, whether it's corn, soybeans, wheat, whatever, and the first call is to the seed dealer. And I'm going, why are you calling the seed dealer? Yes, certain varieties stand a little bit better than others, but there's not a real big difference from one variety to the other. Where there is a big difference is from field to field when we compare fertility levels. If you have the right fertility, I don't care what variety you plant, it's going to stand just fine.
You know, if there's a big time weather thing and there's 120-mile-an-hour winds and everybody's fields go flat, okay, fine, that's a nature thing, not much we can do about that. But most times you see fields that are standing just perfect or close to it, and then you see fields that are going flat right across the road. And that's exactly right.
All right,
get the soil sampling done and find out what's going on with fertility. Then look at how much fertility that crop needs. Because when we look at a corn crop, for example, let's say you're trying to raise 200 bushel corn. You can look at how much the grain removes from the soil and fertilize that way. But if you do, you're missing out on how much fertility that stalk needs to pull out of the ground too. Now you may say, I'm not removing my stalks, I'm leaving them out in my field, and I've been raising this crop here for years, I should be fine. That's not the case. If your stalks aren't like tree trunks, chances are you could use a little more fertility out there.
Okay, tell them your story about Francis Childs, the first time you went to see him and corn that was lodging all across Iowa.
Okay, so in 2003, I went out to see Francis Childs' farm. He was on the east side of Iowa, for those of you who aren't familiar with where that was at. So that year I was driving all across the state of Iowa, and in late August that year, they had some big winds, and there were a lot of cornfields that were falling all over. Not every one, but we saw quite a few cornfields that were falling over driving across the state of Iowa. When I get out to Francis's farm, I see the same hybrid that was the #1 selling hybrid across Iowa that year on his farm, and I see the field sign and everything standing like, I mean, just perfect. And I say, Francis, how come your corn is standing perfect with the same hybrid that all these guys across Iowa planted and it went flat? And he said, well, here's the thing. Most fertilizer dealers look at what crop removal rates are, and that's what they have you fertilize towards. And like Brian said, calling the seed dealers the wrong thing.
That's just on the grain side. Don't forget about the stover side. They look at grain removal.
Then they completely forget
about
the stover.
It might be 200, 250 total pounds. And that's the whole thing. If you don't know how to read a soil test and your fertilizer dealer isn't recommending enough potassium, you're lost. And then that's where all these phone calls come from, where the corn goes flat and you say, well, I don't understand. What it really comes back to is you've got to have ample potassium in that soil. So here's our point. Don't even think about increasing your plant populations in corn or any crop unless you properly fertilize. And if you don't know what you need for potassium, just look at your soil test. Base saturation percentage for K should be a minimum of 4%, and really I'd like it a little higher than that. I'd like it 5 or 6% at least, but 4% minimum. If you're less than 4%, there's a good chance that your corn, soybeans, wheat, any crop you plant could go down.
The other thing you'll have to watch in your fields is weed control. We'll show you how to stop our weed of the week coming up next.